Welcome, friends. We're glad that you've chosen to study with us today as we're looking at different questions that people may have or that may arise that's based upon the Bible. We're going to look at a question that is believed commonly by some people, and that is that it is wrong for a woman to wear ornaments of gold. So our question today is it sinful for a woman to wear ornaments of gold? Now, there are a group of people who sincerely believe that the woman cannot wear ornaments of gold, that she is expressly forbidden to do so. And we commend these individuals for their conviction, these women, for wanting to do what God has commanded them. We would that all women would have the same desire to do that God is pleased with and that God commands. But the question is not today, is it sinful for that woman not to partake of it? It is. If she doesn't wear ornaments of gold because of her convictions, is she wrong? No. She has a conscience. And as long as she believes it's wrong and sinful for her to wear ornaments of gold, she must not do so. But is it something that is sinful for a woman to wear ornaments of gold? Does God forbid that? Many people believe that it is. Where does the basis for this conviction come from? Well, it comes from two writings from apostles, the Apostle Paul and the Apostle Peter. Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians, the second chapter, these words, "In like manner, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefastness and sobriety, not with the braided hair and gold or pearls or costly raiment, but which become of women professing godliness through good works." And so, some seize upon this expression where she is not to adorn herself in gold or braiding hair. The Apostle Peter said the same thing very similarly. 1 Peter, the third chapter. Here's what the apostle said. "Whose adorning? Let it not be the outward adorning of braiding the hair, or of wearing jewels of gold, or of putting on apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, in the incorruptible apparel of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God a great price." And both these apostles said that the adorning of women is not to be with braided hair and jewels of gold. Was he expressly, sinfully saying that it is sinful for a woman to wear ornaments of gold? What we're looking at in these two verses is something that is a Jewish idiom. And that Jewish idiom is this, that two things that are true are contrasted, in which that one is denied and the other affirmed, to emphasize one or the other of them. We call this a not but expression. And there are many such expressions in the Scriptures, and you're doubtlessly familiar with some of them. Let's look in 1 Corinthians, the first chapter. In verse 17, Paul talks about having baptized Crispus and Gaius and a few others that were in Corinth. And then he says, whether there were others, I don't remember. And then he makes a statement, "For God sent me not to baptize, but to preach the gospel." Now notice the expression, God sent me not to baptize, but to preach. So here is this not but expression. Do we understand Paul to say that God didn't send him to baptize? Well, we cannot understand that. He preached baptism. He preached the necessity of baptism. He teaches that in baptism that one puts on Christ. Galatians 3:27, that in baptism one reaches the death of Christ. Romans the 6th chapter, verses 3 and 4. Did he baptize? He did baptize, said he did. Did he violate God's law then when he baptized? If God sent him not to baptize, meant God didn't intend for him to baptize? Certainly not. What was the apostle saying? What the apostle saying was, God's principal challenge and charge to Paul was, you preach the gospel. When others heard it, believed it, and wanted to obey it, who baptized them was not significant. that they be baptized was commanded, but who baptized them was incidental. But let's look again. As we look in the Scriptures, we find that the apostle in 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, said, "Wherefore we faint not. For though our outward man perishes, yet our inner man is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which for the moment work for us more and more exceedingly an eternal weight of glory, while we look not," there's that expression, "look not at things that are seen, but at things that are not seen. For the things that are seen are temporal, but the things that are not seen are eternal." So we look not at the things that are seen. Now, does the Apostle Paul mean that we don't take any consideration as far as this life is all concerned? We don't take due thought about how that we are to fare, that we are to protect ourselves from the elements, or that we are to consider these things as we plant, sow? Well, certainly not. Everyone is aware of the daily weather conditions and the things that are seen. But what's important? Those things are temporal. They will pass away. What is important? What is important is the things we don't see, and they are eternal. One more. In the book of John, the 6th chapter, Jesus spoke these words, verse 27. "Work not for the food which perishes, but for the food that abideth unto eternal life." Now, friend, look at that statement of Jesus. "Work not," said he. Did the Lord mean that people have no responsibility to work? In fact, that he commands them not to work? Why, you know better than that. He inspired the Apostle Paul to write these words. "If any man will not work, neither shall he eat." God's very specific. If a man refuses to work, don't feed him. He has an obligation to help take care of himself. It's just one of those expressions. That statement is true, that one is to work. But it is a greater truth that we're to work for the things that are eternal. And so we turn back to the expression that was found in 1 Timothy and in 1 Peter. Notice that Paul says that whose adorning, let it not be the outward adorning of the putting on of gold, wearing or the braiding of the hair, or wearing jewels of gold, or putting on of apparel. These are Peter's words. And Paul's are similar when he talks about that, not the putting on of gold and braiding our hair. And then he said that it was a matter of not in costly raiment. So you've got this expression. Your adorning is not to be this, not braiding the hair. Is he forbidding women to braid their hair? Think about it. Is he? Wearing jewels of gold? But rather, it's to be the hidden man of the heart, the incorruptible spirit of a meek and quiet spirit. Friend, I want you to look at what Peter particularly said. If the expression not wearing jewels of gold means it is sinful for a woman to wear jewels of gold, look at the next expression of the Apostle Peter. He said, "Nor the putting on of apparel." That is, if it's sinful for a woman to wear jewels of gold, the next expression, not the putting on of apparel, makes it equally sinful for a woman to wear clothes. No, you know and understand better than that. What the apostle is doing, friends, is that he's showing that the outward adorning is something that's just superficial. It doesn't tell who the woman is, what her character is. It may, of course, say something about her, but still it doesn't really indicate the heart. It's the woman's meek and quiet spirit, which is reflected in her meek behavior, in her being zealous of good works, that tells what kind of a woman she is. A woman can be dressed to the finest and wear jewels of gold and be dressed in the way that the world would applaud, and yet be worthless as far as her life is concerned. And thus the apostle is not forbidding the wearing of gold, nor of braiding hair, nor of putting on of costly apparel. What he is teaching is that if the woman's adornment, the only adornment that as a woman has to commend herself, is that she braids her hair in a fine way and puts on flashy jewels of gold and costly arraignment, but she's not one that has a meek and quiet spirit, not one that is full of good works, then it means nothing. It means nothing. Her apparel and her worth is not what she wears. Her apparel and her worth is the kind of spirit she has and the kind of life she lives. In our next discussion and question, we're going to look at this question. Is sprinkling baptism? Most folks think so. So we encourage you, tune in this time next week and study with us this question. Do you have questions? At the end of this video, you'll see a way in which that you can forward your questions to us. Till then, thank you for listening. May you go with God.